is September 22nd. I haven't posted any videos of the Nissan lately, but I have a good opportunity here to do so. You can see that it maybe is up on jacks. I was going to take it to work one day and I noticed that when I started it up there was a funny sound coming from under the hood, and I realized it was the power steering pump making a little bit of noise, like as if it was low in oil. So I pulled the car out of the shop and I walked back in and found a puddle on the ground. That was the end of August. So then I topped up the reservoir with oil and I fired it up. Sounded much better, but after letting it run for a bit and turning the wheels back and forth, I realized it was filling this boot with oil. So that would tell me that there's an oil seal in here or somewhere in here that decided that it didn't want to do its job anymore. So first step was to look up rack and pinion steering for this car, and I didn't seem to find any. Rock Auto's my go-to place, rockauto.com, and they didn't list any remanufactured ones, but they did have oil seals, which would be in this box right here. So here I am doing this myself. This has to have a certain amount of what do they call it, preload, which is all adjusted by tightening this collar here, and then this lock nut just tightens everything up so that this collar doesn't move. And then this here, it's hard to see it, there is an adjustment there, and between the two of them, this has to be able to slide with them within a certain range of force in pounds, which is somewhere between 30 and 40 pounds. So I have a fish scale. I can put the jam nut on here, and then I put a wire around behind it, and then put my fish scale on and pulled it, and it's within spec as it is, but I have to take it all apart, and I have to replace, so I'm going to replace all the seals while I'm at it. So there's one in there somewhere, there's one back in here or somewhere in there, I'm not sure, and then there's one in here, and there's some O-rings in there, and there's probably some O-rings in here and here as well. And then of course they give you new clamps for the boot. Basically what I've got to do is take this apart, pull this lock ring off and the collar out. I'm probably going to end up taking there's 4 bolts there, and this piece threads onto this tube, this piece threads onto this end of the same tube, and all the internals will come out. I'll clean them in my parts washer and brake cleaner, get all the old grease out of them, and then I have to put it back together. I have a good manual that kind of lists the steps, so I'm not completely in the dark here, but I've been studying it. First time I studied since high school, probably, well, maybe college. So yeah, and then we'll just put it back together in the opposite steps, replace those seals, and so every time you put this through, I have to put tape or something on this to keep the seal from getting damaged as I'm putting it back together. I'm going to put the seal kit gives me a Mylar plastic sheet that you wrap around the teeth and put the seal on so that you can slide it into place, and then you can slide the teeth through it, and then when the teeth get onto something, or the seal gets over the smooth end of this shaft here, you can take the Mylar sheet out. But everything's got to be cleaned. I got to clean all this oil up, and I'm going to probably end up wire brushing this rust off of here. And this rubber boot, this bushing here sits in the frame of the car, and then there's a two-piece one that sits in here, and there's a clamp that goes over top of that with a bolt here and there, bolted in. There's this is just a breather tube. It was full of oil because when this one was filling with oil, I was still driving it, because I must have started the leak before I got home the weekend before when I had it out, and whenever I'd turn the wheel, this would fill with oil. It's supposed to be just air. It's like a breather. Lets the boot breathe back and forth between the two. Yeah, so hopefully I can get this back together and get the seals to stick. Otherwise, we're looking at $525 for a remanufactured one, that is, at UAP. That's just an online price. I haven't actually called them, but I kind of got a little, a bit of a turnoff, you might say. So if this doesn't work, I guess I want the car on the road, so I guess I'm gonna have to spend the money, or I delete the power steering, which is not entirely out of the realm of possibilities, because these cars were available without power steering. But because it has it, I would kind of like it to work. So this is what we're looking at. Kind of took me out early in the season, so I'm hoping I can get this thing back together and on the road for just hopefully the weather holds out and I can get it put back together and get it back on the road for a bit yet. If not, I guess this is my winter project. We'll see it next spring, I guess. I took some measurements of from this tapered out to the edge of the jam nut. So when I put all this back together, I'm gonna so I'll put it all back together and I'll thread those tie rod ends on here and the jam nut and set them up about the same as they were when I took them off, and then that should get me I should be able to drive it a bit, until if I manage to get this back together before the end of the season, I should be able to drive it. That'll be good enough to drive it for that little bit of time, and then next spring I'd have a wheel alignment done on it. In the meantime, when I take it apart, I'm going to match mark this sleeve with the tube. Probably put a line across down this way as well as one this way and that way on both ends. That way I can kind of get it back together the same as it is now.